Another day, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing good. I want to hear everyone's comments. Everyone, everyone, welcome to another day, another quarter in our lives of workers and all people. Um, right? Today, we find out more and more allegations against a civil rights icon that worked with Martin Luther King, worked with so many, so many people in the civil rights movement, and also so many people in a lot of rights movement. Right, he worked with a lot of people in different areas. Right, a civil rights icon. Um, right, a civil rights icon and a person that was had a lot of streets named after him. He also had a lot of not only streets named after him. He had a lot of schools named after him. He had he had mentored a lot of people, but now there's serious allegations that he preyed on young women um, and young girls, and a lot of people were shocked, right? And when the reporter called his the person that was also part of the iconic um, movement, Vuelta, he they called her a reporter that got the scoop, called Vuelta to ask her for if she knew about this, and she said, "I can't give you an interview because the same thing happened to me." And she came out and she shockingly came out and also said that she was abused by the same person. The American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be. And so she couldn't lobby any complaints against him because the same thing happened to her, right? The same thing happened to her. So she couldn't vouch for anyone other than herself, right? She couldn't like say anything. She had held it in for many years. She had suffered quietly, suffered, um, suffered quietly without telling anyone, right? She had suffered and had never told anyone about her situation, right? She was scared of telling anyone what had happened to her and her experience with this person that was an icon and seen as a power broker. I don't know if anyone read or ever read Toni Morrison's Their Eyes Were Watching God. It talks about the power dynamics of culture and how culture gets taken advantage by powerful men, right? People that have power over other people's material needs and right? People's material needs. If they have power over the material needs, then they have an ability to do damage to people, right?
Oh, there's utopians. You know, Disney Plus.
Damage over people's lives. And so it's a sad situation, right? And it was the New York Times that broke the story. The New York Times broke the story, right? Uh, a civil rights icon is accused of abusing um, girls for years. An investigation by the New York Times found extensive evidence that the United Farm Workers co-founder groomed and sexually abused girls who worked in his movement. So he groomed them, and he basically, this is a free article, right? Right. This is a free article. I'm a subscriber, but so of the New York Times, and so it was an article that was written by the New York Times. They did a deep investigation, and deep investigative journalism is not that common anymore, right? And deep investigative journalism is not that common, but it's very common. The power brokers of having this narcissistic machismo personality that they want to control the narrative and tell people what to do and treat women however they want to treat them, right? So um, So Anna Murgua remembers the day the man she had regarded as a hero called her house and summoned her to see him. She walked along a dirt trail, entered the rundown building, passed his secretary, and stepped to his office. He locked the door as he always did when he called her and told her how lonely he had been. He brought her onto the yoga mat that he often used in his office for meditation. Kiss her and pull her pants down. Don't tell anyone, he told her afterward. They'd get jealous. So this was like a way he preyed on a lot of different people, right? On a lot of women. He preyed on a lot of women across um, across different places, right? He preyed on a lot of women, right? He preyed on a lot of women, and so unfortunately, a lot of people were upset with him. But everyone kept it top secret because of the power and the influence he had with reporters, with local politicians. And so this is a common theme in labor and in our society where those with power control the narrative, right? And treat women or treat people as if they're the person's property, right? They treat people as if the people are the person's property and they could treat them as they wish, right? They feel like they could treat people as they wish, and no one can say anything or do anything about it. And so across the board, many politicians have now said that they are going to rename many streets, right? So they're gonna rename a lot of streets, and they're no longer going to proclaim Cesar Chavez Day in California. Um, this is Governor Newsom saying,
States and statute. And how many days I've marched, how many times I've been with students, talking about the movement, how many Cesar Chavez dates and statute. And how many days I've marched, how many times I've been with students, talking about the movement, how many photographs I have in my house.
Karen Newsom,
Cesar Chavez.
Right? So basically,
I woke up this morning, it was right there. And so it's been hard to absorb this. Jen and I are very close with Dolores. So many of us are, but very close. Have been for decades and decades, and none of us knew. I think all of us are processing it. And just these kids have to process it now. I mean, I think there's, Brooks, I don't know, was 36 schools in the state are named after Cesar Chavez. I don't know, community and
So there's a lot of schools
country.
named after Cesar
Traveled
Chavez.
14
There's
states last few
days.
weeks. I think I was, in 14 Cesar Chavez streets in every part of this country.
So it's shocking to a lot of people because he was
So
known
we're
to be
just going to
very
have to
popular.
reflect on all of that.
What do you think? It's just a reality of U.S.
And
society.
reflect on a farm workers movement and a labor movement that was much bigger than one man. And celebrate that. It's about the movement. It's about farm workers.
So
It's about
it's
labor.
who knew about
It's
what,
about social
when.
justice,
That's the question.
economic justice,
And
racial
who helped
justice, all things
not get
that,
justice for
the
the
movement
victims.
has inspired, and we should all be celebrating.
And so it
When
was
I started
something.
my record label, the
It was
business
something
side of
that
things,
happened. Something that happened that it's sending shockwaves around the world because there's a lot of people that supported Cesar Chavez and supported the farm workers movement and supported his labor advocacy, his union advocacy, but it's something that is very common, right? It's very common, right? Um, in with a lot of powerful men, and now this is the new Epstein scandal, right? And who is going to be willing to investigate? California, now that he has passed, now all of a sudden everything comes out. So who's going to be willing to investigate, just like Epstein? And this shows us a culture of power tripping. Hit the I'm on Facebook. Hit the follow button, everyone. Hit the share button. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and now Substack. Okay, follow me and TikTok. So follow me on all those channels. Follow me on all the channels, and let's talk about it. Is this the new Epstein scandal that got away from everyone, that no one wanted to talk about? But the reality is, um, and uh, a friend on Cesar Chavez, he was 100% a cult leader. Starting in the 70s after he crushed the Salinas, led his Pickers chapter and moved the org to La Paz. He restructured the entire org to be a cult-like philanthropic organization at the expense of it functioning as a union. Actual unionized membership declined precipitously and never recovered. Today, it's a joke. They don't represent farm workers in the sense of organized workers. They represent the idea of farm workers as an identity as recipients of charity. And Huerta helped him do all of it. The purges, the synonym game, the cult of personality, the silence scene, the reconsolidation, the crushing of independent rank and file organizing, the conversion into a philanthropy, grift enriching their own families. So they were living very well, while the farm workers kept living in a struggling manner. But they were still living well, and to this day they were living well. Um, and so that's what a family friend that knew them, has said, right? Has said about it. And so it's serious, right? These are serious allegations. And so there's a lot of powerful men that were involved in right? It's shocking to a lot of people. It's just shocking to a lot of people because so so a lot of people are saying that they didn't know what was happening. They had no idea what happened with him and what he was doing. A lot of people claim that they didn't know what he was doing. But I mean, how can you not know what he was doing? How can you not know what Cesar Chavez was up to if you were leading the organization with him? And these are just allegations, right? I know everyone has a right to, how can I say, to be heard. People have a right to, right? Everyone has a right to be heard, right? Everyone has a right to be heard. Everyone has a right to have their day in court. But these allegations were buried, and similar to Epstein, it's just a straight up power trip, a straight up way of just not letting the truth come out, right? Not letting the truth come out. So it makes me wonder how many people knew about this abuse, like Nasser and the doctor. That there was a lot of investigations, a lot of complaints. Nothing was done because of the amount of money that the person had. So it makes me wonder um, exactly how many people knew about the incident and knew exactly the conduct of these men, right? And just shrugged it off as if it wasn't important, or as if um, they didn't really care if anyone went to investigate it. And Huerta and Cesar Chavez knew every politician there was out there, right? So did the politicians and those in power give them cover for their abuse? Is this an Epstein situation at a massive scale, right? At a massive scale, there's going to be major blowback, major problems because it's just coming out now. But who knew about it? Who was an accomplice to it? And um, did the girls complain about it because to the authorities, but were ignored because of their legal status or because of their um, vulnerability, being BIPOC, minorities in a greater scheme where there was too much power and no one. So we really need to, as a society, examine our power structures and put in place protections where people cannot abuse their power and abuse people and get away with it just because they know the media, they're friends with the media, or they're friends with um, powerful people that will make this go away, right? Right? That will make things go away. And that's why I say this is the issue, that we have chauvinistic male culture, macho men that pound their chests and feel as if they never have to apologize, they never have to be held accountable, and they never have to be challenged in this sphere of influence. And so that's why I spoke about Toni Morrison's book, The Eyes Were Watching God, which spoke about the power that people have over other people and how that power is abused when people are vulnerable, when people are poor, when people are in poverty, when people cannot fight or stand up for themselves. This is when um, they're abused, right? This is when people are taken advantage because they have this ability to control the destiny of people, the material uh, uh, um, survival of people, right? When people are poor and they don't have the resources, who will believe them and who will stand up for them, right? Do they don't have the power to fight the whole system, take on the whole system, and take on all the powers to be. They just don't have that influence or those connections that people are going to be willing to listen to them and protect them, right? And a lot of times it even happened with the special victims unit in the New York Police Department, where victims reported um, things happening to them and they became victims again, right? That was a big investigation. And this happened even in a lot of police departments across the country um, where the victims become victims again. Once they say what happened to them, the system victimizes them again. And then they have to speak out in public against their abusers. And they have to go through hell again and prove that what happened to them is real and what happened to them is not just made up. And they put them through hell again. So this is the system of the macho man, right? The system of corruption, the system of straight up not caring about what happens to fellow human beings. This is about the dignity and respect of each other, right? The dignity and respect of fellow human beings. But it seems like we don't care and we're not willing to hold powerful men accountable, like Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, um, uh, Cesar Chavez. The list is going to get bigger and bigger, right? The list is getting bigger and bigger. The Epstein list is big. But guess what? No one has been brought to account because they donated a lot of money to a lot of powerful people. And so it just shows the system that we have, that money rules over people, right? Money rules, and everyone else just has to be silent or be quiet about the power structures of what is occurring, right? No one's allowed to speak up or say anything, and now everyone's shocked, right? Everyone's shocked. Oh, I didn't know he was like that. Um, we had no idea, and so if the victims would have came to you, would you have done something about it? Probably not. You would have just sat on the sidelines and act surprised, right? Right? Act surprised.
Many decades, saying that Cesar Chavez raped her. And there's a sort of a reckoning about him, somebody that so many people in California have championed for so long. I'm just curious your reaction to that story and what you think should be done about his legacy now.
Alex, thank you for bringing up in such a sensitive way something so devastating to all of us, shocking beyond words. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, first go to the survivors, to Phyllis and the other, especially the minors who were affected by this when they were little girls. Look, a movement is not just about one person. Mm-hmm. It isn't. It's about the values that propel it, and those values are still there. So I think that
But are you willing to condemn his behavior and what he was doing? Are you willing to condemn this behavior, right? This is the power structure. These are the powerful people, the people with money that are controlling the narrative of our society.
we praise the work of the farm workers and take down any recognition of Cesar Chavez.
And
So, so her suggestion is just to take out the recognition of Cesar Chavez. This is Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, was very close to Huerta, was very close to Cesar Chavez, was very close to this power. She was a Democrat from California, so she never heard any allegation at all of Epstein, any allegation of Clinton. She didn't hear any allegations of Trump. She didn't hear any allegations of Cesar Chavez. She didn't hear any allegations of any of these powerful men, right? Or she didn't want to hear, or she didn't know about it. I don't understand, right? But they were close friends and allies in the movement, right? And so her answer is very weak. It's just basically, okay, let's just take down all the statues. Let's take down all the street signs, the street naming. Let's take down the naming of the buildings and the naming um, of schools. So this is what happens when we glorify and praise men that are made of flesh and can easily deceive, and we don't know what sometimes people do in private, right? Or what kind of people they are when dealing with vulnerable populations or dealing with people that can't defend themselves, right? That can defend themselves. But the reaction is very weak. Newsom's reaction was very weak. Pelosi's reaction was very weak. Disappointing, very disappointing that her response was this way, right? I'm very disappointed that people are not just saying, "Hey, he did wrong. Um, let me, let me, let's not include him, right?" And so let's so then they interviewed Huerta, which was Cesar Chavez, a powerful figure in the farm workers movement. And so ABC interviewed her.
This remind you of?
She's the iconic labor leader and civil rights activist who co-founded the United Farm Workers alongside Cesar Chavez. Now speaking with us in an ABC News Network exclusive, Dolores Huerta says as an adult, she was sexually assaulted by Chavez.
It's devastating.
It pains me to have to ask you this, but did Cesar Chavez rape you?
What one could, how shall I put it? You can name it what you name it, whatever, But I think when you are forced into a situation of unwanted sex or whatever, that I think you could, you could consider it rape.
For decades, the late Cesar Chavez, who died at age 66 in 1993, was a civil rights icon, a champion of farm workers, and hero to millions.
It's heavy, right? Heavy that people just looked the other way, including her co-leader that was experiencing the same thing. So didn't she think that if he did it to her, he wouldn't do it to other people in the organization? And so, what are we going to say? The powers in our society are corrupted. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Um, no one wants to take accountability for their actions. That's just a
Of
reality.
Latinos.
We're not going to give up. We're too far to give up.
Chavez's legacy now shattered after an exclusive investigation by the New York Times detailed allegations Chavez groomed and sexually abused girls who worked in the farm workers movement. Ana Murguia telling the New York Times she was 13 years old when Cesar Chavez started to sexually abuse her. Deborah Rojas telling the Times she was raped by Chavez when she was 15. Dolores Huerta holding her own painful secret for nearly 60 years, inspired to speak out now because of the revelation from these two women who are now in their 60s.
This is out.
So they decided to wait till his death because he was too powerful still, too connected, knew too many powerful people. And now you didn't see knew someone speaking about him and knew him personally. Pelosi, a lot of the power brokers knew him across the board, right? A lot of politicians knew him, and a lot of reporters, and a lot of powerful, influential people. It was sort of like Epstein, that no one dared interfere or get involved or do anything to him because they knew that he was just too powerful. He was just too connected in society for anyone to want to challenge him. And so um, it's crazy. Yeah, but everyone's getting upset, right? So let me put some comments on the stage. So these are allegations, right? We got to prove it in order to get an answer, right? But let's see what people have to say about this. You know what sucks? Um, an emotional salary. I can't pay for groceries with feelings. Why they? Why can employers see that? Nothing in life. There's power, right? There's power structures. There's power structures. There's a lot of powerful people that control everyone's fate. It's called capitalism, right? And under capitalism, you have to do whatever the employer tells you to do, including deal with these type of situations because you know that if you speak out, you're done. That's it. You're blacklisted. You no longer are going to be in the power structure. You're no longer going to be able to survive. You no longer are going to be with the group that's in power at the time, right? Sad but true, right? Sad but true. So that fear is an actual fear that people have, right? People have this fear, this big fear that something can happen to them. And so some people are saying that this is something that is dangerous and it's crazy, right? It's crazy and dangerous, right? It's sad but true, right? Sad but true that they would do this, right? Just sad but true that they would do this. Um, Give me 1 second. It's sad but true that they would do this to people and that she had to endure this, right? That she had to endure this. And it's just a sad
So
world we live
it's
in.
time for me to tell my secret also.
Also, these women were going to be alone in their claims and their allegations, and you wanted to support them.
Absolutely. And I, I just want to thank them and applaud them for their courage. This is so hard. God knows what they had to go through,
And you didn't tell anyone. Why?
No.
Why not?
I've spent my entire life organizing for farm workers, okay? I didn't want to do anything. And I knew Cesar was probably the only person that I had ever met that could really do the job to organize workers.
So he was the only one that could do the job, but the organizing, some people are saying that the organizing didn't take place. That a lot of people, that the whole organization became very rich. A lot of the members were able to enrich and live in nice houses, while the farm workers still struggled. They got politically connected, and then some people were betrayed and were pushed out, and there were purges, and the powerful or the people that had socialist leanings or didn't like the way they were moving, they would push them out, and the politicians kept them there in power because they needed them to be in control of the farm workers. They couldn't risk the food supply or the farm workers becoming too powerful or too independent. So the question is, why? Why would you do this?
Image of speaking up would be too much. It would hurt the movement too much.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine? I mean, the movement was built by hundreds of volunteers that came in, and even convincing the farm workers themselves that they had the power to build their own organization. It was very, very hard.
Huerta says she became pregnant twice by Cesar Chavez, choosing to hide her pregnancies from the public and arranging for the children to be raised by other families.
And in your case, those two sexual assaults.
So, does this make sense? Like, does this make sense? So, allow this man to run an organization because he's the only one that can organize it, but he was preying on all these women, allegedly, these allegations that they are making against him. And so now it's looking real bad for her also.
You became pregnant.
Yes.
Both times.
Yeah, that was when abortion was illegal. I, as a good Catholic, thought that birth control was a sin. I thought that abortion was a sin. I have since changed my mind on those issues.
Huerta feeling conflicted between the accomplishments of their movement and the horrific actions of a man she once so admired.
I think we leave that up in God's hands, But I think the progress that was made, that we have to acknowledge it and say, yeah, that he was a great leader, but unfortunately, he had an evil side to him.
With recent demands to replace Cesar Chavez's name on schools, parks, and streets, the Lord is.
What do you think? Should they rename all the streets and change the names on all the streets because of what the allegations against this powerful man were, right? Should they rename the streets? Should they change all the street names? That's my question. Should they name all the street names and or do a deep investigation? It seems like they just want this to go away, right? Especially now before the midterm elections. Especially now during the midterm elections, that there's so many elections happening, and now everyone's going to distance themselves from Cesar Chavez. They don't want no investigations being launched, especially at this time, right? Right? And so that's my question, right? So everyone, like, share, comment. All right, share, follow, and comment on the videos that I post daily. There's so much to go through in the daily news roundup, but this is a story that's blowing up. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I've seen it in over 200 newspapers all around the world, all around the country, and so many news stories about the what happened. And so the question is, like, what should happen next? What should happen next? Should there be a deep investigation launched by the state of California, launched by the federal government, which is like, what do they know? Are they gonna? Is Trump gonna investigate allegations against this man and not want to release um, anything else? Not release. Right? Should they release? Should they have released the record of Epstein and these powerful men that control our society? Should we hold these people accountable that do wrong and put in place protections for all workers, all disenfranchised people, all people that are always in trouble, right? We should do that for all people, right? We should do that for all people. So thank you for joining me. I'm gonna go live later on, but for right now, peace. Take care of yourself. I wanted to talk about Huerta and Cesar Chavez, how it's connected to Epstein and Trump. This is a society that needs to change for the better of every single person around the world, but also in the United States. We can't turn and look the other way when there is injustice, because injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere. Please hit the follow, share, and like button, and I will be on for a late night summary of all the news, including the war in Iran, including all the political news that are happening across the country and in New York City and New York State. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I'm Celso Garcia, and thank you for joining me on this live. Let's look and analyze, what world are we living for our children, and are we leaving for everyone? Que Dios lo bendiga. May God bless you, and have a good day, everyone. Take care.